If someone keeps hurting you and you keep calling it patience, you're not kind. You're training them to destroy your self-respect. Today, I'll show you the 5 types of people you should never tolerate, because the moment you stop tolerating them, your confidence, power, and peace rise instantly. If this is hitting close to home, pause for a second and think about who you keep explaining yourself to. And if you want more mindset shifts like this, make sure you stay connected because protecting your mind is the real upgrade. The first type you should never tolerate is the constant critic, and this person is dangerous not because they shout at you, but because they quietly reshape how you see yourself over time. They disguise their negativity as honesty, concern, or even love, but every comment they make slowly chips away at your confidence. They point out your mistakes more than your strengths, they remind you of your failures more than your progress, and eventually you start hearing their voice in your own head even when they are not around. This is how control begins. Not with force, but with repetition. When you tolerate this behavior, you unknowingly teach them that disrespect is acceptable as long as it is delivered politely, and that sets a pattern where your self-worth becomes dependent on their approval. You begin second-guessing your decisions. You hesitate before speaking, and you start shrinking your goals because somewhere inside you believe you are not good enough yet. The most dangerous part is that the constant critic often looks helpful to outsiders. They seem wise, experienced, or brutally honest. But real support makes you stronger. It does not make you smaller. This type of person does not want to see you grow beyond them, so they keep you emotionally dependent by keeping you uncertain. And the longer you tolerate this, the more you normalize self-doubt as part of your identity. People who succeed protect their mindset fiercely because they know confidence is fragile in the wrong environment. When you finally stop tolerating the constant critic, something powerful happens. You start trusting your instincts again. Your voice becomes steady and your decisions become faster and clearer, not because you suddenly became smarter, but because you removed the noise that was convincing you that you were weak. Strength is not built only by motivation. It is built by eliminating the voices that poison your belief system. And the moment you refuse to accept disguised disrespect, you reclaim control over how you see yourself and how the world sees you. The second type you should never tolerate is the emotional manipulator. And this person doesn't control you with force. They control you with feelings. They make you feel guilty for saying no, selfish for choosing yourself, and ungrateful for having boundaries. They use phrases like, "After everything I've done for you," or "You're not the same anymore," to turn your growth into a crime. And slowly you start believing that protecting your peace is hurting others. This is how they win, not by overpowering you, but by confusing you. When you tolerate emotional manipulation, you begin to live in a constant state of emotional debt, always trying to repay something that was never meant to be a loan. You over-explain yourself, you apologize for your needs, and you start putting your comfort last just to keep the peace. But the peace you're keeping is not real. It's a silent war where your needs lose every time. The manipulator thrives on this imbalance because it gives them control without accountability. They never directly tell you what they want. They make you feel bad until you give it to them, and over time you stop asking yourself what you want at all. This is where people lose their identity without even noticing, because every decision starts being filtered through someone else's emotions. The most dangerous part is that emotional manipulators often look like caring people. They seem sensitive, emotional, even loving, but real care respects boundaries. It doesn't punish you for having them. When you finally stop tolerating this behavior, something shifts inside you. You stop feeling responsible for other people's reactions. You stop carrying guilt that was never yours. And you begin to understand that love is not proven by sacrifice of self, it is proven by mutual respect. Power returns the moment you realize that you are allowed to choose yourself without asking for permission, and when you stop letting guilt run your life, you take back control of your emotions, your time, and your future. The third type you should never tolerate is the chronic victim, and this person drains you not with anger or control, but with endless helplessness. They always have a story about why life is unfair to them, why nothing ever works out, and why they are always the one suffering the most. At first, you feel compassion because you think they just need support, but over time, you realize something is off. No matter how much help you give, nothing changes, because their pain is not just a situation, it has become their identity. They don't want solutions, they want attention. They don't want growth, they want sympathy. And the more you tolerate this behavior, the more you get pulled into their emotional gravity. Every conversation becomes heavy. Every achievement of yours feels awkward to share, because somehow their struggles always take center stage, and slowly you start shrinking your happiness just to avoid making them feel worse. This is how you lose momentum without even noticing. The chronic victim never takes responsibility. Everything is always someone else's fault: the system, the timing, the people, the world. And when you stay close to this mindset, it starts influencing you too. You begin to excuse your own delays, your own fear, your own hesitation, because complaining feels easier than changing. This is why tolerating a chronic victim is dangerous, not because they are bad people, but because their mindset is contagious. It teaches you that life happens to you instead of being shaped by you. And over time, that belief quietly kills ambition. The hardest part is that setting boundaries with this type of person makes you feel cruel, because they play the role of the wounded one so well. But real compassion does not mean carrying someone forever. Real support sometimes means stepping back so you don't drown with them. When you finally stop tolerating this pattern, something powerful happens. Your energy becomes lighter, your focus becomes sharper, and your goals start feeling possible again. Not because life suddenly became easy, but because you removed the constant reminder that struggle is all there is. And when you protect yourself from the mindset of victimhood, you give yourself permission to grow without guilt, to succeed without apology, and to move forward without carrying other people's pain as your permanent responsibility. The fourth type you should never tolerate is the secret competitor. And this person is dangerous because they don't attack you openly, they smile, they support you in words, but inside they feel threatened by your growth. They clap for you but with weak hands. They congratulate you but with forced energy, and slowly you start noticing patterns. They change the topic when you talk about your wins. They joke about your goals. They suddenly become distant when you succeed. This is not coincidence. This is silent rivalry. When you tolerate this kind of energy around you, you expose yourself to a constant undercurrent of negativity that you can't fully explain but always feel. It shows up as doubt after good news, hesitation after progress, and guilt after achievement, because part of you senses that your success makes someone uncomfortable. The secret competitor doesn't want you to fail loudly. They want you to doubt quietly. So they use subtle tactics, backhanded compliments, comparisons, and unnecessary advice that makes you second-guess yourself. And over time, this changes how you move. You stop celebrating fully, you stop dreaming out loud, and you start shrinking your excitement just to keep the atmosphere calm. This is how ambition gets muted, not by enemies, but by tolerated envy. The most dangerous part is that this person often stands very close to you, sometimes as a friend, colleague, or even family member, which makes it harder to confront them. So instead of setting boundaries, you adjust yourself, and that adjustment costs you confidence. People who truly support you don't compete with you. They feel inspired by your growth, not threatened by it. And when you finally stop tolerating secret competition, something shifts inside you. You start moving freely again. You speak about your goals without fear of judgment. You celebrate your wins without shrinking, and you choose environments that match your vision instead of limiting it. Strength is not only about pushing forward, it is also about removing the invisible weights that slow you down. And the moment you stop giving access to people who secretly hope you stay small, you step into a space where your success feels natural instead of guilty, and your confidence grows without needing permission from anyone around you. The fifth type you should never tolerate is the boundary breaker, And this person weakens you not with words, but with behavior. They hear your limits and treat them like suggestions. They push your time, your space, and your comfort again and again until you start feeling exhausted without knowing why. At first, it looks small, a favor here, an interruption there, a joke that crosses the line, but over time, these small moments stack up and slowly teach you that your needs come second. When you tolerate this pattern, you begin to lose your sense of control, because every "just this once" turns into a habit where other people decide how much of you they get. The boundary breaker thrives on your silence, not because they are evil, but because they are comfortable taking more when no one stops them. And the danger is that you start blaming yourself for feeling drained, thinking you are too sensitive or too weak, when in reality you are simply surrounded by someone who does not respect limits. This kind of tolerance trains your mind to accept inconvenience as normal and discomfort as your responsibility. And once that happens, you start giving more than you can afford emotionally, mentally, and even physically. The hardest part is that setting boundaries with this person feels uncomfortable because they react with surprise, annoyance, or guilt trips, making you feel like the problem for finally speaking up. But that reaction is proof of how much they benefited from your silence. Real respect does not disappear when boundaries appear, it grows. People who truly value you don't get offended when you protect yourself. They adjust, they listen, and they respect your space. When you finally stop tolerating boundary-breaking behavior, something powerful happens inside you. You start feeling lighter, not because life gets easier, but because you stop carrying what was never yours to carry. Your time becomes yours again. Your energy feels protected, and your voice becomes stronger, not louder, but clearer. You stop negotiating your comfort and start honoring it. And that shift changes everything, because the moment you teach people that your limits matter, you teach yourself that you matter too. And when self-respect becomes your standard, every relationship around you either rises to meet it or fades away naturally. And that is how you build a life where peace is not something you chase, but something you keep by choosing what you will no longer tolerate. The sixth type you should never tolerate is the attention seeker who feeds on chaos. And this person doesn't hurt you directly. They hurt the environment around you. They create drama, exaggerate problems, and turn small issues into big emotional scenes just to stay relevant. At first you think they are just expressive or sensitive, but over time you notice a pattern. Peace makes them uncomfortable, silence makes them anxious, and stability makes them bored, so they stir emotions to feel important. When you tolerate this behavior, you slowly get pulled into unnecessary stress. Your energy goes into calming storms that never needed to exist, and your focus drifts away from your goals into managing someone else's emotional theater. This is how people lose progress, not because they lack ability, but because their attention keeps getting hijacked by avoidable noise. The attention seeker thrives on reaction, whether it's sympathy, anger, or concern. Any response feeds their sense of importance. And the more you tolerate it, the more intense their behavior becomes, because they learn that creating drama guarantees them a spotlight in your life. The danger is that you start feeling responsible for their emotions, thinking if you don't respond, something bad will happen. But real maturity doesn't demand constant emotional maintenance. Real connection allows calm without crisis. This type of person slowly trains you to live in emotional urgency, where everything feels important and nothing feels peaceful. And that state of mind is exhausting. It steals clarity, patience, and long-term thinking. The hardest part is that cutting back on this kind of energy makes you look cold, because they are used to being the center of emotional gravity. But protecting your peace is not cruelty, it is self-leadership. When you finally stop tolerating attention-driven chaos, something changes inside you. Your mind becomes quieter, your reactions become slower and wiser, and your days stop feeling like emotional emergencies. You begin to invest your energy in growth instead of conflict, and you realize how powerful calm really is. Strength is not only about standing up to loud enemies, it is also about stepping away from loud distractions. And the moment you refuse to entertain unnecessary drama, You reclaim your focus, your time, and your emotional balance, which allows you to move through life with control instead of constant reaction. The seventh type you should never tolerate is the opportunist user, the person who stays close to you not because they value you, but because they benefit from you. They show up when they need advice, help, support, or connections, and disappear the moment you need the same energy back. At first, you may not notice because they are charming and grateful in words, but over time, a pattern becomes clear. Every interaction feels like a transaction. Every conversation leads to a favor, and every moment of your success becomes an opportunity for them to attach themselves to your progress. When you tolerate this kind of behavior, you slowly turn into a resource instead of a person. Your time stops feeling like your own, and your kindness becomes something people expect instead of appreciate. The danger is not just that they take advantage of you. The danger is that you start believing this is what relationships are supposed to feel like: always giving, always available, always useful, and never fully supported. The opportunist user never directly disrespects you. They just quietly drain you, and because they don't cause obvious conflict, you keep them around longer than you should, convincing yourself that helping them makes you a good person. But there is a difference between being kind and being used, and that difference is balance. Real connections give back. They don't only take. When you tolerate one-sided relationships, your standards drop without you realizing it. You begin accepting less effort, less respect, and less care, simply because you are used to being the one who carries the weight. This slowly affects your confidence because deep down you start feeling valuable only when you are needed, not when you are simply being yourself. And that mindset is dangerous because it ties your worth to usefulness instead of existence. The hardest part about stepping away from an opportunist user is the guilt, because they remind you of everything you've done for them, but they never mention what they failed to do for you, and that silence speaks louder than any thank you. When you stop tolerating this dynamic, you begin to reclaim your time, your energy, and your sense of self-respect. You stop proving your value through sacrifice and start expecting mutual effort. You begin choosing relationships that feel equal instead of draining, and that shift changes how you move through every connection in your life. The eighth type you should never tolerate is the disguised discourager, the person who looks supportive on the surface, but quietly weakens your belief in yourself. They don't tell you directly that you can't succeed. They simply plant small doubts that grow over time. They say things like, "Be realistic, don't get your hopes too high," or "People like us don't usually reach that level." And at first, it sounds like concern, but slowly it becomes limitation. When you tolerate this kind of energy around you, your dreams start shrinking before you even chase them. You begin editing your ambitions to fit someone else's fears, and without realizing it, you start living a smaller life than you are capable of. The disguised discourager often believes they are helping you avoid disappointment, but what they really do is teach you to expect less from yourself, and that expectation becomes your ceiling. The danger is not that they stop you openly. The danger is that they make you stop yourself. You hesitate before trying. You delay before acting, and you hold back before speaking because a quiet voice in your head keeps reminding you of their warnings. This is how potential dies, not through failure, but through doubt that was never yours to begin with. When you tolerate this behavior, you slowly lose trust in your own vision. You start asking for permission to grow, and you begin measuring your goals by what feels safe instead of what feels right. The disguised discourager may love you, care about you, or even want the best for you, but love without belief becomes a cage, and concern without courage becomes a limit. Real support challenges you to rise. It does not train you to stay comfortable. The hardest part about stepping away from this influence is that it feels disloyal because they are not toxic in obvious ways. They are gentle, familiar, and close. But closeness does not always mean alignment. When you finally stop tolerating discouraging energy, something powerful happens inside you. You begin trusting your instincts again. You start taking chances without apologizing, and you allow yourself to imagine bigger futures without fear of judgment. Your confidence grows not because the world suddenly changed, but because the voices around you did. And when you choose to protect your belief system, you protect the very engine that drives your success. Because no matter how talented you are, no matter how capable you become, the life you build will always match the level of belief you allow to surround you.